Welcome to the Out of the Trance podcast. I'm your host, Andrea DeBellis, and today I'm so excited to be joined by Cindy Vogel, and we're going to be talking about connecting to the feminine. So welcome, Cindy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for your invitation.
My absolute pleasure. I've been really excited to talk to you because we met when I first came to Ericeira, almost a year ago. And we were just talking about how crazy it is that time flies by. And we met at one of your events where I came for breathwork, and it was a women's circle for connecting with the feminine, and it was so amazing. And I just loved you and your energy, and we became friends, and we had some wonderful conversations. So I'm so excited to be doing this on camera now.
Nice. Thank you so much for expressing your experience at the time. And for me, breathwork came in my life, I think even more, like 7 years ago. And I actually got in contact with like the body because of this burnout that was coming in.
Yeah.
And for me, doing this kind of study and like doing this breathwork teacher training was actually more like a guidance for myself first, like to connect deeper with my body. And I start to notice that I was breathing high in my chest and just like going in this control energy of survival mode. And that is just like what life brings us nowadays, like a little bit sad to hear that. But I did this journey for myself, and then I entered kind of, in a way, the breath, and that guided me into connect deeper with the feminine. And it was so powerful to kind of having this kind of golden key to sink in deeper into the body. And we cannot do that with the minds. It's just like this breath, and for me, and the sound and the movements of the body, like following the rhythms of nature to sinking deeper into your body. It starts all with breathing kind of, in a present way in life. But we're just,
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And so when you started doing breathwork, which was, you said you were doing from the place of burnout in the body, were you going in with the attention of what we're talking about today, the connecting with the feminine, or did that realization come later?
I think that realization of polarity work came later. I was, for me, first like, okay, I am acting in this masculine energy, and the whole collective energy is doing this time. We're doing it already for a long time. And it's just like the only thing we know how to act in life. And the feminine, just like the breath and surrendering deeper into the body and sinking to your body. For me, I came to a conclusion that it was just more connected with the feminine. But the masculine is more like this, we need to anchor of the masculine of like the focus, the structure, where to go. And when we know where to go and how we structure our container, then we can flow deeper into our feminine energy in a way.
Yes. And this is such an interesting subject that I'm only, in the past few years, only just being introduced to. And I feel like I'm still quite an infant in understanding it. And maybe some of our listeners are. So let's break some of these concepts down a little bit and then define them. So can you explain what polarity work is to somebody who might have never heard of it before?
Yeah, beautiful question. Yeah, I think polarity is just like life in a way. I mean, we can say masculine, feminine, we can say yin and yang, but it's just like this anchor of like the masculine is kind of, in a way, the doer in life, and the feminine is more the receiver. So it's just like this vibration of like the doing, and when we know that when we do the doing, then we can receive deeper. So it's and the feminine is in this case the receiver, and the receiver is like feeling her body. Can she go more in, and can she start to connect with that anchor of her body and what there is moving? And also when the feminine is more connected with her body in a way, and she starts to open her heart and feel that expression, then the masculine is like feeling her in a sense. And then, I'm just like, it's a big topic in a way.
It is. And there, as you said, there's so many different ways of framing it within different traditions and practices. So like, it's the energy, right? So you've got the yin and the yang, you've got, I think sometimes the right brain and the left brain is representative. So there's a lot of symbology and metaphor, but it really at the root of it, the masculine and feminine are the polarities that we all have within us, right?
Yes, it is. Like we have both in us, and it's just like the question in life is like, is it in balance? And that's just like the collective energy where we're in now, that we are just like 80% in our masculine and the 20% is in the feminine. And people have this deep desire to be in the feminine, but we have like this thing that society is asking things from us, that we start to doing more. And then we are acting in this energy a lot. And then the feminine is just like a thing that we know with the mind, but we actually don't know what it is. But it's also like this, can we feel safe here on earth to sink into our body and to feel and to not being in this control and survival mode and grabbing and grasping, and I need to have the job, because you can have the job, you can have the man, you can have the car, but do you actually feel your body? Do you feel your feminine? Because it's all from that navigating from the masculine energy.
The society is based on, especially Western culture, about
making
navigating
money from the masculine. Yeah.
And it really defines like the time and the paradigm that we've been in and the one that we're coming out of. So like the wheel of time, like the yugas, like the clock of time. And it talks about how there's these different epochs. And, you know, at 12 o'clock at the top, it was like the golden age. And it was the height of like clairvoyance, where, you know, the spiritual world was the top of things. And then we came all the way down to the 6. And that's where we've been coming out of in the dark, the Kali Yuga, which was such a focus on matter, physicality, logic. And because we're kind of creeping back up the other side, up to the 7. So we're like swinging and ascending. So it makes sense that all of this is starting to resonate and wake back up in people, but we don't have any map or context for it. So that's why I love sitting down with you and talking about this and educating people and really just making a conversation and bringing it into the paradigm or the zeitgeist, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's just like, what you're saying. And then that the thing is like letting go of the understanding in a way. So kind of in a way, can we...
We're trying to understand it, but let go of the
how are you doing that? It's like the ego is constantly coming in. But I can really feel when the feminine is kind of moving her body, when she starts to breathe deeper, then first she's gonna connect with kind of emotions that weren't felt for a couple of years or just when they were young because of the trauma. And then we put it in the ice box, you know, it's like you're not going there because it's too much, and we're closing it, and we start to navigate from the mind and the masculine and the doing because we need to move forward. And we're just like, or people are numb, or people are in a freeze response because they don't know how to be with that energy. And the work, what I do is more like, can we open in what wants to arise? You know, it's like the movement is there, then the emotion is coming up. And it's not like, okay, we're going through it and you need to do a lot of breath work. And then, because then you can create more trauma. So it's more like this invitation, like, okay, this is here. Can I be with it? Can I face it? And can I let go of that? But just like breathwork is kind of speaking your truth, not living a lie to yourself, I always say, right? It's like this thing of, okay, this is present right now. Can I face it? And from that energy, we can speak from that vulnerable place, from the feminine emotions, like, like I feel my body and I feel actually very tender, but I want to feel it because I want to live that truth to myself in a way. And that is so beautiful with the feminine. And when she starts to explore with that emotions and with that kind of like that movement of feeling, then like creative energy starts to flow. And when the feminist starts to connect with that alignment of like feeling and expressing your creativity, that is actually connected for me in this case with the soul alignment, like what you have to do here on earth. You know, it's like, that is what I want. Because it's not like from this shadow masculine of like, I need to do that because the outer world is like feeling that expectation. No, it's coming from you. And for me, in this case, you can only connect with that if you start to sink into your body, if you can surrender into life and what is coming in. Like, what do you actually want? Because a lot of people are with the mind, I don't know what I want. I'm just doing this, but I don't know.
Right.
But from which place is it? Coming from.
Yeah, because it becomes so performative, as you said, like the soul comes in. And does the soul come in balanced? It does. And then we have that split, right? Where we split from it, and that moment where we say, okay, usually young, where these things aren't deemed acceptable, so they go into shadow. And then the personality forms. And is that sort of what you're referring to as living a lie, because we're pushing parts of us into the shadow?
Yes. Yeah. We do. Yeah. And it's also like because it feels safe, but it's not safe. It's just like because the shadow is following you your whole life when we're not start facing it. And that is so beautiful in the work. And when I see that the big thing when people are the last day of a retreat, when they check in with me, like how was that feeling of like, you know, like this experience, what you felt with all the practice, what we did. And they had this aha moment, like, yeah, I actually want, like, you know, I want to do a travel, or I just want to quit my job, or I just want to let go of that relationship because it's not aligned anymore with the soul, with my purpose in a way. And that's why we're here now, that we, in this collective energy now, we get this big invitation to let go if it's not serving anymore. It's not like holding on it because it needs to be like this and we need to show it to the world, like how good I am with my partner and work or whatever. No, it's just like this invitation of like feeling it with your heart. But if you're not feeling it anymore, can we let go with everything? You know, it's just like acceptance.
Yeah. And it sounds like, you know, it really is about coming back in balance with the soul and the alignment. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about as you do that, and you connect with your purpose, your soul's purpose.
Yeah. To connect with your soul purpose. Yeah, I think it's just like this. For me, it's like being in stillness in a way. So let go of what other people thinking of you, or the stories, what you are believing in life, or your limited beliefs, or what you are. It's just like, can we let go of all that things that are kind of, you know, this patterns what we have. That's the thing. I think we're living in kind of patterns, and then and then there's like the separation of the soul, because we're constantly in that freeze response of like, I don't know. A lot of people are saying like, I don't know what I'm doing in this world, and I cannot put my offer out because I don't know what to do.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is. Yeah. And to come there in a way, I think it's just also like the soul wants to experiment. So it for me in this case, I do a lot of experiments. Like, okay, this retreat was this topic. Okay, it works. Oh, the other one was this topic. No, I didn't like it that much. This was working in a breathwork exercise. Oh, wow, this was happening. And it's just like the soul wants to go every direction. And the mind is like, no. And the ego's like, no, we're not going to do this. Because there's also this perfectionist in your body of not doing it. And I think there are a lot of people stuck of not experimenting in life. We're just here to explore.
I absolutely love that. And that's been a big realization for me in the past 4 or 5 years. With the work that I do in hypnotherapy, what I've realized is that the Jungian approach to some of the change work and interventions from Carl Jung really takes into account a lot of the shadow work, a lot of the idea of like the soul's purpose. And then, you know, he kind of talks about how the first half of life is actually like all this experimentation and getting messy and living. And then you alchemize that into finding your meaning, your purpose, and your mission. And then you go inside to do the inner work. So I really love the idea of like experimenting and playing in life. But I can see how we get conditioned, the ego and the subconscious mind, it's how I call it in hypnotherapy. It's there to protect you. And it does that through learning. And it does that for learning through society, the parents, things that hurt us, right? And they all get piled into this. This is the personality I need to be to protect myself.
Yeah.
So as we come out of that with, and it sounds like a lot of the work that you do is through the body, it brings you out of the personality and into the soul a bit more. But what are the practices so you've talked about breath work. You and I talked a little bit about feminine embodiment as a practice. So embodiment practices in general. Can we touch on that a bit?
Yeah, it's like I said already earlier, like feminine embodiment is connected also with the breath in a way. But it's like this, we are like we feel vibration in our body constantly, and we we feel liberations, and the feminine has like this strong life force energy and that wants to move, but it's stuck because of the trauma. So the practice, what we do is actually more like opening our heart. So opening that heart center, because the heart, the feminine is giving from her heart and receiving from her heart. So just a lot about the heart, like opening and like entering that acceptance of what she is feeling. So it's a lot working with the emotions in the basic terms. And then I work with like to enter that place of life force energy. Then the breath is like a beautiful key, but also, for example, spinal movements. And it's not like, okay, I'm doing my cat and cow, but sometimes I give that to people because they recognize, okay, cat and cow, I know, because it's also, again, like, oh, the mind knows what cat and cow is. So we start to move with that first as a basic line. And from, for example, from that cat and cow, we move our body in different shapes. So it's just like, it's so hard to bring it in words, but it's just like this connection with breath, sound, and movement. These three like elements to bring our life force energy on. And then also emotions like happiness and sadness can be at the same time. So in a practice, when we do it on a retreat, it's like they are expressing. And then they need to laugh, like a fire. It's unlocked this energy that starts to release. And then it's happiness, and then it's sadness, and then it's anger. And then the mind is not understanding it, why that is coming, because the mind was pushing that away for a long time. And the body starts to feel like happy, like, oh, I can express myself because I can feel that my life force energy starts to move and that everything wants to come out in a way. But then it's also the case, is the feminine feeling safe with that? So it's like entering that place. But I always say to people, like, check in constantly with your heart. Do you want to go deeper in it? Or is it okay for you? Because I'm the person I want to have people deeper into the process. Right. But it's the decision of this, in this case, the feminine, if she wants to go deeper. So it's constantly in live an invitation of like, do I want to enter it? Can I feel my body? Can I still connect with my boundary that I want to go deeper? So the first like day is always like boundary setting of like, what is my no and what is my yes to the external world, but also to yourself. Because you see also a lot that people are connecting with their emotions and they're overwhelming. They're, for example, too connected with the feminine and they don't have that anchor of the masculine. Because you need to feel container. Yeah, we need to have the safe container of our clear boundary of our core masculine, that we know what we want and what we don't want, and from that place we can flow in a way where we cannot live only with the feminine. I mean, it's love. It feels like love and light, but it feels very unsafe. It needs
to be balanced.
Yeah,
I want to come back to the balance, but I want to touch on the aspect of the movement, the breath, and the sound, because. What I love about all of those things is that it's so content-free and story-free, because, there is a time for story, but then there's a time for not. And so many of the emotions get stuck in our body and they have so many layers and things associated with them, but you don't need the story necessarily to go into them and release them. You actually need to feel them, right? And I've been to your events, and, I remember the circle of women, we were lying there and doing breath work. And I've experienced this myself where you are suddenly laughing and joyous, and then you're crying, and then vice versa. And, I think the mind tries to grasp onto the story, but, it's like when you stick with the breath and you're always reminding to stay with the breath, because you actually don't necessarily need the story. I mean, I've gotten messages and insights before, but they weren't narrative.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I think also like this pattern is coming also from our parents, like this thing of like what is good and what is bad. When we were crying, then we need to stay like quiet. And when we were laughing, then it was good. So also like this expression of like a child that wants to express and feel her body, his body, to be. And you see it in a child that they are so expressive. They are so not doing that with the mind. And then we get these conditions. And then when the body starts to come back to that expressive child in a breathwork, then it's like mom or dad or a teacher was like, no, you can't. And then it's like, oh, this is weird. I cannot do that in a way.
Yeah.
So it creates a story. And it's like really a big remember to come back to that place of like, can I still enter that? And that's okay. That it's get normal, because if I talk about emotions, people are like, oh, but you're doing retreat with emotions. It's too much. It's too dark.
Really?
It's too heavy. But it's like, can we...
Do you get that response a lot?
Yeah, like it's now... Sometimes at a point I was like, okay, let's be like more like the light teacher and do the yoga and the hikes. But I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh...
I want to go deep and dark.
Yeah, I want to go deep feminine work.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, maybe I need to change my program because then I'm more light. But it's like, no, that's not my soul mission in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, what I want to say is just like this, can we make friends with emotions? Like, can we connect and can we put it in the light energy of like, oh my God, I feel my body. And a lot of people are so happy when they come from numbness to expression of feeling, because when they're a long time in numbness and they start to cry or start to feel anger, then they feel their body directly. And that's the connection with the feminine. She wants to feel her body. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, so much of like, as we talk about what we're taught to kind of push away or to move away from or what's not acceptable, we also learn to, because we're not used to sitting with our feelings, we learn to numb things, right? So like, as soon as we numb things and move away from it, we're not getting the release of it. We're not feeling it. We're not getting the lesson or the wisdom from it. So we move farther from their intuition. So as you move people back into their bodies, do you notice that intuition comes online for them more?
Yeah. Like, because the intuition is that energy that is constantly there, but we're pushing it away with our mind in a way. Like,
blocking it.
It's the first thing that's coming in is your intuition, and it's just the first print of what's happening in the energetic field. And then it's like, directly after the intuition, it's like, oh, but it's not, or there's a story directly after. And I think with like connecting with your intuition and connecting with your body and letting go of the story and trusting that is super powerful. But it's just like this thing, because an intuition can also be very painful. Of like, oh, that was my intuition that, for example, like an ex-boyfriend is like dating now a girl that I was already feeling.
Yeah.
And they're together now. I was like, I noticed that already 5 years ago. And that was with my ex-boyfriend. And he's now with a girl that, but I already felt that there are a really good connection.
Yes.
Yeah, like a knowing. And that's also beautiful, but it's also like so powerful that your intuition is so strong.
Yeah,
in a way, but it can also be like a story. So
it's right. That's right, because we're kind of almost, we're not really taught to tap into it, right?
Yeah.
So, and we're not taught to it, and then also, as you said, if we're also not like conditioned to feel our emotions, if something's painful, the idea, I mean, even like a lot of our culture is built on like numbing pain through medicines or other activities, Netflix, whatever it is, right? So yes, but we all, I think so many people, like even if you haven't been acquainted with this work, you're familiar with the women's intuition, when you just know something's going on. And you can either trust it and then maybe have to change your life. So that's very complicated, right? So there's a good reason to move away from it, or it's too painful to even face. Or you just you rationalize, no, I have no evidence of that. I have no evidence. The rational mind's like, no, can't be true.
Different layers of like entering the intuition, because it's the truth in a way.
Yeah.
If it is bad or wrong, bad or good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And can we enter that place of truth in a way, of like what we're feeling, like the intuition, but also like the knowing of where we actually want to go, but we're still on the job because it gives safeness, and we're not fully trusting or process that what the soul wants in life. So it's all the time about repeating more like this thing of what your soul wants than repeating the story that you cannot do it, because that's like this loop of more about it, I think, how that works in the brain.
Yeah. And it makes sense at a soul level and at the level of, okay, truth and intuition. If I'm going to now look at this, I think there's a decision to be made, right? Because once you do, you have to either take responsibility for it or not, right? Do I want to step into it or not? And that might mean changing, the conditions of your life, or it might mean changing, your relationship, or things that you're not ready to change. So there's a lot of like responsibility in truth. And I think that, who said this? I can't remember, but I was listening to him on a podcast, but the point made, which I found really interesting, whoever it was that whatever truth that we don't want to face, there's some need that is more important to us at the time than facing that truth, some need that needs to be met by not facing it. And I think that makes a lot of sense as we actually start listening more to our intuition. We might be stepping into uncomfortable truths, and it's that safety you talked about with being comfortable with what's there. Yeah. Does that have to do with balancing like the masculine polarity container so that you can feel safe in your intuition and trusting it?
Yeah, I think, again, then we need like this safeness of the masculine, of like the structure of like, like there is like this thing dropping in of like, okay, I feel actually to do this. Then we need to doing of the masculine, the do energy of like creating that container. And then when that is there and that feels aligned with like the structure like that you need, then the feminine can be creative in that.
Makes sense. We're talking a lot about internal masculine and feminine polarity, but it makes sense in the form of relationships. So can you explain a little bit the difference between internal and external?
In relationships?
In the polarity of the masculine and feminine energy, because we've been kind of talking about within an individual, the masculine and feminine, but how we relate to the external world, and I guess mostly relationships. Yeah,
I think what was dropping in like relationships, it's just like this. What is also funny with relationship is that you can feel sometimes already like polarity is moving. It's a dance, so it's not gender based. It's just an energy that's in the body. But it's like you can really feel sometimes in relationships that when for example the man is more in his feminine, the feminine or the woman is directly more in the masculine. And what you see often like these days, I'm not saying that this is how it is, but it's more like this thing of the feminine is feeling frustration about that she cannot really move in her feminine because the masculine don't know how to be fully in that presence of the masculine, but the feminine is not really giving fully the trust to the masculine to enter that place. So I always say, like one of my teachers said, can we trust him in the car directions? And can we trust in what he is doing for me, and that I can flow in that direction? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like this.
Literally and metaphorically.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay. And then we have like this feminine that is not, the feminine is always testing. So she is like, yeah, but you're driving wrong, or you did this to me, and can you explain this? And then the masculine is making himself smaller, the man. And he is more like, oh yeah. Or there is like this state of having this discussion and not coming to a point in a way. But the thing is like when the feminine starts to trust the masculine in relationships, then the masculine is trusting himself more, that he can be in that energy. And she found him more attractive because he's putting himself in that energy. But the feminine needs to give space to the masculine, to the man to enter that in a way.
It's an interesting conversation in the context of like, society at the moment, or even in the past decades, and specifically right now, because suddenly you end up in especially lately, more of a gendered conversation. But just talking about the last, however many years of my life, right? I'm 42, so I was born in the 80s, and it was post-feminine. And, I grew up watching like movies about women going to work, and that was, that was exciting to my mom's generation. But there was nothing I thought that I couldn't do, but it was always the idea that you could have a job and work your way up and be a strong woman, right? And that was what so much of the movies and art portrayed, was this really, really strong, maybe too strong, in terms of the polarity conversation that we're having. So I think that you start to wonder if that pushed things too far into the masculine, and possibly because we've been living in a paradigm that's based on the masculine. So that was just the goal that we were striving for. So we were striving for equality of like decision making, equality in the relationships. But sometimes that equality unbalances the masculine and the feminine energy. But then that becomes somewhat of a controversial conversation because of a lot of reference points that I think are related more to gender than they are to the polarity and the energy conversation. But I noticed that what we've strived towards in the past several decades is kind of what might be leading to some of this imbalance that we're talking about now.
Yeah, and it's not good or wrong. It's just like it's in a way happening, and there's like this. I think also this woman, the feminine is. In one of my teachers said like David Dida. I don't know if you notice him. He is really like the feminine is the ocean, and the masculine is the rock and the present and the stone in the ocean. And if you look at the ocean, she's super strong and she's super powerful and she is unlimitless. She's so powerful, and I think when in the collective energy, and if we look in the past, then the feminine is so suppressed in a way. And now we feel like in this collective energy that she wants to express herself and speak her truth and move herself like the ocean. And is there space for that? And at the moment that she is not fully feeling safe in her body to express that, then she is more in an energy of like testing, or like you see it in a couple work that both cups are full, like the masculine is moving in his emotions and the feminine is feeling in emotions, and then you're not coming to a point to hold presence for each other. So that's also like a thing of like David Dida is working with the 3 stages. So first stage is like getting to know each other, moving in like triggers. And then, you have like this energy of like, no, I want this and I want this. And then there's not like water by the wine, we say in Holland. And then you move to, it's like that some of the feminine or the masculine is like holding space for each other in a way. And then the second stage is like he's explaining of you need to hold in a way space for each other and asking each other like, what do you need in the relationship? And just opening that energy. And then stage 3 is like devotion. It's like love, and it's like you're giving fully from a full heart, and then you receive in a way back. And so he's working more like couple relating work, like how we are moving in different stages. And it's not like in life that you need to move from stage 1 till 3 in life, because you can always be in stage 3 and then having another relationship and you move directly in stage 1. So it's always like this dance of noticing that this framework is being aware of that we're doing in a way.
And when we can balance the energies in the relationship, does it lead to more fulfillment and a healthier relationship?
If we are working with this framework, yeah, because it's like most of the people in relationships and in life are constantly in stage 1, because it's like constantly this not understanding, constantly triggering each other in each other's traumas, and not feeling that listening, conscious, present listening to each other to really go deeper. And like for the feminine, but also for the masculine, if we are not entering that place of fully present listening, then you're constantly in an energy of not feeling seen, and you're constantly get triggered in your trauma and being in this survival mode. And you need to face your own traumas and work with that. And if there's like a conversation in the relationship, you need to be aware at a certain point that you're doing that. It's like having this helicopter view of like, oh, that's my pattern. That's what I'm constantly doing. And then seeing that, and your partner is always like facing that in a way. He's like giving you that back of like, hey, you're doing this, or you're saying it in this emotion and you're moving in this energy. And then can I receive that instead of like pushing it directly back of like, you're doing this to me. So then you're constantly in this fight conversation in stage 1.
So through the polarity work, you can really go into a lot of like inner understanding and sort of self-discovery work in the relationship, kind of going in through the polarity sort of context.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, because I can really feel that the masculine, for example, is more like, can he hold the space? Can he be present? Can he open? And can he be like this rock, the stone in the ocean?
Yeah.
So that if he is in that energy, then she can express. But then again, it's not gender-based. So can we also do it the other way?
For the other, yeah. And you need to flip
because if my partner is listening to me, I sink in my body. I have a calm nervous system. He's seeing me in my emotions and he's feeling me. And in that point, when he starts feeling me, then I feel safe to go deeper and to open my heart more, because he's really, feeling me and seeing me, and he's also happy because he's feeling my heart. And the feminine don't has to play in a role of like being in an act of like the independent woman or the good girl, or like playing a role in life.
Right, because I think that's what leads to a lot of that internal frustration, because there's a part of you, part of most of us, and I can speak for myself, who didn't understand any of this feminine energy polarity work at all. Yeah. But then there's like the societal, okay, this is how I'm supposed to be, but this is in juxtaposition with how I'm feeling. Like I want to feel taken care of, but I can't say that out loud. Yeah. Or I can't even say that to a partner, let alone your friends, because then you don't sound like the independent woman that society taught you to be. And as I said, I think that's changing a bit now in the past few years, but up until now, like these conversations would have kind of landed you in a firm, like, you're backwards, anti-feminist kind of camp, right? So I think that it's so important to be having these conversations, because they really do explain these feelings that we can be having without the ability to add content or context to. Especially, collectively, right? Because as we're talking about we talked about the internal experiences as an individual, we talked about in the context of relationships, but also in the collective, I think that we've really I don't want to say maxed out, but we've really gone to like the peak and the height of intellect and logic. And as we move back up this clock, like we started at a place where clairvoyance and, communication with the spiritual realms, and I'm going back far, like this is a 24,000-year cycle, like Atlantis, right? It was very feminine. There was like, you had contact with all the spiritual beings. And then we moved into this, we moved down the clock. But as we move back up, we don't leave the logic behind. We take it with us. And I think we're moving into the new clairvoyance that does have logical, linear thinking, but with more of the intuition. So we kind of, in order to keep moving up, we need to bring that back in. Yeah. And when you're tapped into the intelligence. So logic and analysis is really secondary. Yeah. In terms of power. So when you're talking about the feminine and the ocean, it is more powerful than the rock. But we are kind of conditioned that, okay, logic and analysis is the best way there. Yeah. Which is an interesting time, because now we have AI, which is really good at logic and analysis, but it can't tap into the universal intelligence or the cosmic knowledge. No. Only we can. Yeah. So developing that skill, especially through something like polarity work, is, I think, increasingly important. So I really love the work that you're doing. Can you share a little bit more about how people can, come to your offerings, the retreats, and what tools they can use to reconnect with the feminine in their own lives?
Yeah, beautiful question. So I facilitate mostly like one-on-one work, and mostly things also in person, because I believe that when we're with a group of women together, then magic will happen. I believe also in online work. I'm working on a masterclass for the end of the year.
Oh, really?
But that's all online, and we can do a lot of online. But I can really feel like doing the retreats and doing the embodiment, and just like, always like this woman that are leaving the place or sharing from the heart to another woman, because it's sometimes so hard to explain that what we experience. And I think also like connecting with, what you say already, we want to understand so many things with the mind, and that is like logic for us. But then it's just like this experience with the body, like it's beyond the mind. So when we're going on these retreats and we start to explore this energy of movement that starts to unlock in the body, like life force energy starts to move. Life force energy is your sexual energy. And it's like the mind is like, oh, can I actually receive that? Because then we are going back in, the trauma and the shame and all the layers that is there that do not feel that. So what I'm doing in my work is a lot of retreats and hosting my next retreat in September. So we
Here
have,
in Portugal?
we have in the north of Portugal, Vila Real, close to Porto. We have a beautiful location in nature. And I love to welcome all beautiful women. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
And then we just practice just like all the things of like the layers what we are feeling, and we're moving into the emotions with different kind of practice. So there's also like a dear friend of me, she's teaching about like the layers of beauty and our inner beauty. And if we start to feel that anchor of like feeling your inner beauty, that it is directly a natural expression of your outer beauty. So I work with different teachers also to create new programs.
So you bring other people in as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And I love the idea of connecting with your inner beauty, because our inner world is what creates our outer world, right? And in the context of the balance, right? Yeah. I find that in my life, we talked about this in work. Yeah. I think we had some conversation around work. I found that like when I can create the container as, like the masculine, like the structures and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. As long as that's there, it's never the stuff that actually like makes a big difference, right? Yeah. As soon as I can create that, then I can kind of slack off sort of and do something like just get into dancing or get a lot of massage. And then all of a sudden my business takes, itself to the next level. And I thought to myself, because I've been watching this over the past year or so, I was like, okay, this is the stuff that works. But it's always once I feel safe enough to do that. So I can really see how these concepts are, now that I, am more acquainted with them and understand them, I can see how they kind of create that dance and balance in my own world. And then obviously in relationships, it makes a lot of sense in relationships.
Yeah, so beautiful. Yeah, and also like that clarity, what you said already with the inner beauty is like, it's all about the eyes. When you feel that radiant energy in someone's eyes, that is like directly connection, like with the alignment, what the soul wants to do here on earth. So it's like, like this, oh yeah, I want this actually. And you can just like have beautiful hair and beautiful makeup, but when the eyes are not radiant, then it's just like so not alive in a way. And I think what I see in the retreats, like when the last day of the retreat, when we start sharing and then seeing, how they came in and how they leave the place, it's just so magical.
Their eyes and their face look different.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm not telling them what to do in life. Yeah. It's just like guidance, what they need in that moment. I'm just not telling them what to do. They know, already what to do.
So it's just about facilitating, right? Tapping into that knowing that we have inside of us, which is the intuition and which is in the body, but it's
to
really
break that open, letting go of the patterns. So it's actually really like this thing of like breathing out, letting go of the stories, the limited beliefs, what we're carrying, and breathing in that, that new energy that wants to enter. And what you say, beautiful, like the knowing what you're coming to do or to remember. What to do.
We talked about that when we first met. The remembering that really, that's what it is, right? The remembering what we basically spend our whole life forgetting. Yeah. And you can't do it through necessarily actual memory, right?
No.
The idea is that we took the oath or we agreed to the veil of forgetfulness. And we have to get back to the memory, and the body remembers and the soul remembers, but which is kind of a fun game.
It's funny, like it's like a game, right?
That's how I see it. I never ever a few years ago thought I'd be saying that, but now I see it that way. I'm like, oh, this is fun. It's like a treasure hunt for like, what was the original thing? What am I getting back to? Who are the people that I knew in past lives? And just kind of first of all, just remembering that that's the game, right? That we're in a game.
Can we be playful in that?
Yeah.
Can we explore in that energy?
Yeah. This whole personality of protection that I've developed is not me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not Andrea, you're not Cindy. I mean, we are, but not really.
To give more safeness, like, oh yeah, that's my name. Oh yeah, that's my body.
Yeah.
Oh, I can look to myself in the mirror. Okay, that's me. But that's the thing. We're coming here. We're getting this incarnation. We're coming in that body. and we don't know anything, and we're just already born with trauma in a way. Yeah, just don't want to make it super dark in a way, but it's just like this thing of like, can I really remember that it is okay to feel this way, and to being playful in that, and not feeling the fear of the controlling and the grasping and where to go in a way, but just like feeling that it is okay what you're feeling. And I think how we're moving now with work, with money, all the contracts we have, like, you know, the house, the car, and so many costs, and we need to do, it's only like an overstimulation of the doing.
Yeah.
And it's so, it's like, stop, people, please.
Totally. And, you know, when you refer to trauma, it really is even that initial separation from when we separate from, when we get that like limited self-awareness. So we step from our unlimited self that we come in as, and then we go into the limited self. We take on all the trauma of the people around us, our own through pain. And then it's like, cool, now you get to play the game and figure all that stuff out.
It's like really a game. I love that word, like playing the game, explore with the soul, see what works, see what not works. Also with friendships, right? It's like, okay, if it's not like flowing, then let it go. You know, it's just like constantly that, but it was for also relationships. Like if it's not, you know, flowing in your direction and your soul gets kind of like suppressed in what it wants to do here, we need to move forward, or we need to, it's a choice. It's always a choice. So it's always like this thing of like, okay, or do I enter the place and I want to heal that place, and I see or triggers and I go for it. That's also fine. But it's also like, if it's like, it all depends also where the soul is in this process. And if you can receive each other and where you are in life. And that is just constantly acceptance and feeling, again, love for yourself and feeling that direction where you want to go in a way. Yeah.
Yes, and you always kind of try, you know, it is a choice, like between the anchor to maybe an old pattern or an old relationship that keeps you in a pattern.
Yeah.
And choosing between that anchor or the growth. And it's sometimes an uncomfortable process, because it can mean, you know, ending relationships, friendships even, and moving to the next, you know, through the flow, right? Because maybe you're in a place that you're moving through a place that is different than, you know, the group and the souls that you've been with for a period of time. So that can always be a choice of like, do you anchor to these old friendships and old relationships, or do you keep flowing and moving and, you know, a lot of
and the people that are on your path for this life, that also, I don't know how it was for you, but coming to Portugal, my soul or my that voice that was coming was already for 5 years.
For 5 years,
I need to go to Portugal.
Wow.
And I don't know why. And I just took my bag and I took my car, and I have a lovely mom that said, I will drive you because I would love to see Lisbon. And then we took the drive to Portugal, and it was just like this knowing again, but it was not like this mind thing, like, oh, expat life, I need to go to Ericeira or something. No, it was just like Portugal, close to Lisbon, close to the ocean, and then come to a place of, you know, Ericeira.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are drawn to Ericeira in that way. And a lot of, I think Ericeira is one of several places on the earth that starts magnetizing people who, you ask them why they got here, and they're like, I don't know, I just knew I had to come.
Yeah.
My story was a little bit different because I was actually planning to go to Ibiza. So my mind was like planning that. And I went and I had determined that I would live in Spain. I had a criteria. The mind was making the criteria. The soul knew what I wanted in a space. And I thought that Ibiza, and other places in Spain, but Ibiza specifically, fulfilled that. And I was there, and I was like about to sign a lease, and I just couldn't do it. And then winter was over, and if you don't sign a year-long lease in Ibiza, the summer is going to be too expensive, so you have to wait again. So I came to Portugal just to kind of like hang out for a bit for, you know, a couple months in the summer, because I wanted to wait and see if I could get a lease in Ibiza. And I got here, and my nervous system just was like, you live here now. Like that. And it was just as simple as that. I was driving in a car one day being like, I wonder if I should start looking at places in Ibiza. And it was like, why don't you just live here? And it was like that. I was like, oh, I live here now. So just like that.
It's clicking in directly.
But that was Portugal. But Ericeira itself just drew me in a way that it felt like a magnet. And I think that when we, I read this, I study a little bit of like hermetic knowledge and Rosicrucian. So I really resonate with that body of those traditions. So specifically like Rudolf Steiner's work. And one of the ideas that they talk about is knowing what your mission is before you know who's going with you. Yeah. And that really resonated for me, because the way that we do life is like we grow up and we have our friends and our family and we don't know what our mission is, but we're surrounded by who we're surrounded by. But the idea of figuring out what you're here to do and then decide who's coming with you is the order once you really tap into your soul's mission. And I'd never heard that before, but that's beautiful. Took some time to process. And I think it's related to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, because I can really see, like, I have just like two people in front of me that are, one of them wants to travel, one of them wants to stay, in this case, in Holland. And you feel that suppression in the soul of like, but I have this thing to do here. And also for me, coming here and meeting here my boyfriend and living from that place where to go, it feels so much more free. And I don't know, I felt in a way like we are now 1 year together, but it feels like, I don't want soulmate, whatever you want to call it. It's just like a lot of learning processes, but it is seeing each other again after maybe, many incarnations.
Okay.
It feels
it's like a
remember.
remembering.
And so funny that, and that's the thing, what I feel then, like with the soul. I mean, I think I'm also here for the work, what I do and the retreats, but also like this knowing of like, I need to go there and I don't know what I'm going to find there. But the thing is, like, I really believe we really have that knowing where to go. Like every human being, if we start to connect with that feeling, we know what we want in a way. It's just the mind is like, what is it then? But just experimenting with the soul and put your soul like in the front seat and just like, okay, it's like vibrating, which is so beautiful, like this magnetic energy of like, I need to go there. And then just, in a way, for me, there's first always chaos, and then you come to a place of like, the aha moment of like, I need to go there. But first there is like, because the mind is like, and the ego is like, what are you doing? Coming back. You cannot, and everything, the unsafe feeling from the mind.
Yes.
And then it's because it is really stepping into the unknown. And that's the first thing people need to know. It is the unknown. You just need to surrender into that for some reason. But there's directly the mind of like, and the ego, no. And then it's constantly an invitation, and it will come back. It constantly, every day.
Totally. And there's that dance between like, is it intuition or is it fear and conditioning? And I've realized in my life, like there's times, because the soul knows, right? So the soul knows, and it communicates to us in either downloads or packed thought forms. Will, like I just feel I need to do something, so it pulls us from a will. It gives us an idea in the shower, so it's communicating with us. So I have found the most wonderful things that happen in my life when I actually listen to it. But the mind, when it gets in the way, and I think, that's the intuition. That's you can always correct, but it's that dance. But it's what I've realized is that the most up-leveling or exciting or big shifts in my life have come from following my intuition, but then using the mind later to explain it, just to rationalize it to other people so I don't sound insane and tell them why. But it's never why I really do stuff. I do stuff for a different reason, and then I'm like, that sounds crazy. So I'll just use I'll tap into logic to explain it. And sometimes to myself, and then sometimes other people. But if I really look back, it's like, no, it was just somebody said something and I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Or like I said in the car, I was like, oh, you should live here, and it's never like it's never the full, it doesn't make sense always, right? And we always want to justify things and have them make sense. And the mind's good, and it can do that, and it can tell people stuff so that, your parents don't get worried about you.
But that's funny. But and also in a way, like making it kind of smaller, because the mind is in a way smaller. So it's also funny.
It is. It's
like
secondary.
Super big soul in things that want to come in, and then it's like, what is this? Like it's what I said again. It's going beyond. It's so big. And and we're just like also like with this, the soul is so big, and we're just like with this little thing here on the earth, right? It's just a part of you also. That's very interesting. We can talk hours about it.
I know, we could indeed. But I think that the work that you're doing is amazing and so important and so relevant to the time that we're in. So I absolutely love it. I love the way it works with hypnotherapy because, you know, there is some content in the hypnotherapy and I love getting into the body. And I think when we can affect the energy in the body, it affects the consciousness. And we can affect the consciousness, it affects the energy in the body. So they work so well in tandem. So I feel like we're going to eventually do some work together.
Definitely. Yeah. Yes, I'm looking forward for that.
Well, Cindy, I absolutely loved this conversation today. Is there anything you want to end on?
To give like people like this deep invitation to come back to your body, to having this, remember to not live that lie in your life and to come in truth and having this aha moments and
beautiful.
Again and again to remember how beautiful that is to enter that place of what you're doing here. Yeah.
Not to learn, but to remember.
To remember. Yeah.
And you mentioned your retreat. I'm going to link that in the show notes. Is there anything else that's upcoming that you want to mention now?
I do some things in Dutch, so at the moment this year, only one retreat in Dutch and one in English.
Great. Well, I will link everything.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I absolutely love this subject and learning more about it. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I loved it.
Thank you for inviting me and sharing your knowledge and everything.
We'll do this again because I feel that, like you said, we just scratched the surface.
Yes, just to begin.